I'm Sydney Kane,
And I'm Liza Petrov.
and you're listening to Page Fright, where we talk about writing craft, the ins and out of the publishing industry, and our own personal journeys as authors. So let's dive in.
Hello.
Hello.
Girl, I think my boyfriend hates me.
What? That is not where I thought this was going to go.
You don't even know my next move. You know why?
Why?
Because I really, really, really want to get another cat.
You should. I'm on
I
your
want to get a
side.
second one, but it was hard enough to get the first one.
Would you want the same kind?
Yeah, I do. I love British short-hair cats. I mean, this might be boring for people to listen to, but like, man, British short-hairs are so cuddly and nice and calm. And I know a lady that like she's just the nicest person. She's really good with animals. She's a breeder. For anybody out there that's like, you shouldn't buy cats, you should only adopt them. I understand. My mom only exclusively adopts her cats, but I did get my cat from a breeder and I love him to pieces. And I want to love another one to pieces.
He is so
So-
cute. I asked my Instagram followers, like, should I get a cat and how can I make them obey me? I really want a subordinate one. And you should have seen the negative that came in. It was like, do not get a cat. You're crazy. All of these things. And I finally had to ask them, like, is this a me thing? Do you guys not see me as like a pet owner? Like, you don't think I can do it? They were like, no, cats are monsters.
No, they're so wrong.
Well, half
That's
of them
ridiculous.
had cats that they love.
My cat is a little angel, except for at 5 a.m. But every other time of the day, he's perfection.
Does
He's
he
so
destroy your
sweet.
furniture?
He doesn't. No. You just have to train them properly.
Okay, I'm gonna have to pick your brain about this when we're offline because I need full instructions on how to train a cat.
But yeah, I have instructions. I did a lot of research in order to get this cat.
Okay.
Anyway, so I know that we have a show to get to. Our show is focused on, are we doing a wait, what? Or are we doing...
No. Today is a stagecraft.
We're doing a stagecraft? Okay, I'm excited. I'm always excited about stagecrafts.
So one of the things that I see as a common question for new writers is how do you show and not tell? And that's very hard for new writers because you have so many things that you need to get down on the page, backstories and setting and time and place, and then who your characters are and what they're trying to do. So that can be a very hard feat to accomplish. And I will let you start our discussion.
Sure. Well, the number one piece of advice I would give people is to reframe that piece of advice, because it's not show, don't tell. Like, that's kind of a short, nice, memorable way to think about it. But what you're really doing is thinking about when to show, when to tell, and allowing yourself that space and understanding what you're writing, who your audience is, and what they want to be shown and what they want to be told. So if you're writing commercial or certain types of upmarket literature, you are probably going to be, and tell me if you disagree, I think you're going to be telling a little bit more than you're showing because you're getting people through plot. We are moving at lightning speed. And that telling is entertaining to people in itself, those audiences that are reading more plotty books. If you are writing literature, you're telling descriptions about your setting, where you are, what's going on, and then you're kind of tucking away other key points of information around character internal thinking, character development, themes that you're trying to touch on. You're tucking them away into character movement and decision making and interactions and dialogue. And you kind of you go as you go up the scale in complexity, you're going to be doing that more and more. From commercial to literary writing, you're going to be doing those with different amounts of emphasis. That's what I think.
Yeah, I never thought about it before, but I guess there is more telling in upmarket commercial fiction, but I think it's in a different way. Because when you think about narration, usually I think about when you're telling someone it's in a form of narration. And so when you say something, because I think sometimes people get confused about what this is. So if you're saying, once upon a time in a land far away, there was a princess who lived in a castle, that is telling, not showing. Whereas showing would be um, the girl picked her crown up and placed it on her head. Now I'm not telling you she's a princess. Now we know she's picked up the crown and put it on her head. She's some type of royalty. She looked up at the steeped circular turret of where her room and her lady's maid is waiting for her. You say things like that, like, okay, she lives in a castle. So things like that. That
Yeah.
is showing.
Yes, that is showing. So another example, so I'm reading for my book club, A Scanner Darkly, and the book is about future dystopian world where the main character is taking this mind-bending, mind-splitting, really, drug. When you're in the book, when you're thrown in, it is not giving you any sort of leeway or ramp up to understand what's happening. It is throwing you into the middle. And this is a literary science fiction book. It's throwing you into the middle of the action and it's just telling you what is happening, but in such a way where it's showing, if that makes sense, where it's not explaining itself. Things are happening in the scene with
Hmm.
drug addicts trying to find either imaginary or real bugs that are infesting their bodies. That is what you're thrown into. They spend the day trying to find bugs on the floor. You don't know everything about the world immediately. You don't know that this is a dystopian future. You don't know that they're drug addicts even. Know that there's a man and he's convinced that he has bugs crawling all over him and inside him. His
Hmm.
friend comes over and then they spend time trying to find those bugs together. And by reading it, like you have to sit with your own confusion. And literary writing often tests you in that confused space.
Hmm.
It keeps you there, and it's almost challenging you to turn away. like sit with me, be confused with me, push through, and then you're going to come to a point where you have been shown enough details where you're like, oh, I understand what's happening now. Okay, I get
Hmm.
it. And so when you go into more commercial writing and it's kind of like we want a broader audience and we want to just push people through this and it's more about the plot, you know immediately you are in a dystopian future, you know?
Hmm.
And it might have shown you it in a different way, but there is more of an emphasis on telling you like who is who, what
Hmm.
is happening and why. And the stakes are laid out more openly, I guess.
Mhm. Yeah, definitely. And I think to think of it in like, how do you achieve this type of way? I like to think of it if you're looking at it almost like a bird's eye view down at the story and understanding what's happening, then you are probably telling the story. If you're directly in the action and you're seeing what's around you, that is showing what's happening.
Hmm. Yeah.
And
It's
so,
kind of like you're entering a room and you're picking up context clues.
mm,
If you're writing the book, you're guiding the reader into a room and you're letting details about characters speak for themselves. You're not
exactly.
explaining those details or translating them to the reader. You just say the detail, you leave it at that, and you move on to the next detail about another character.
So let's give an example. Like, you're trying to write a character about the scene with a wife walking into a room and her husband are fighting, and you don't want to explicitly say these characters have been fighting. How can you demonstrate walking into a room how this wife might be in a fight with her husband? Uh,
I
um,
mean, you can say the silence when she walked in was oppressive, and
hmm.
then uh she approaches and he sets down his fork very loudly.
Hmm.
Something like that. Like he's in the
Sh-
middle of eating and she goes snap like
yeah,
on the plate or something.
she asks a question, and at first he doesn't answer. So
Yes.
she asks again, and he sighs heavily, closes the newspaper dramatically, and slams it on the table and
Mhm.
says,
Mhm.
"What?" You know?
Yeah. Yeah,
uh,
exactly. Like what we gave was a series of details, a series of character actions or setting descriptions that spoke for themselves.
Now, here's a question, though. How do you know when to tell and when to show?
I mean, so I think that it depends on the type of writing that you're doing. So I think that that's the key. decision. So let's, if we break it down we can start with commercial and then if you want to take upmarket, like I feel like for commercial, what you want to do is show instead of telling in service of tension, always. But if you need to move your plot quickly, then tell. Don't be afraid to tell. So I would actually tell a lot more. I would just say it out loud. And then in editing it, I would go back through and go, okay, where can I tweak the tension to up it and take out any sort of superfluous explanation of what's going on. I feel like that would get me more quickly through writing a commercial plot than trying to do all of the showing not telling in the first draft. Like I
Mhm.
would just try to tell everything and then I would do all of my tweaks in post.
Mhm. In upmarket, I would describe the scene, let's use the same one with this married couple, almost exactly the same, but then where I would tell would be through usually internal dialogue. So, because I want you to understand the nature of this relationship while also feeling very present in the moment. So, probably what I would do is say, you walk in the room and ask him a question. Let's say he doesn't answer. And then I would say it through maybe internal dialogue, like, he's ignoring me again, like the sixth time this month. What have I done now? The last time he did this was when I forgot to unload the dishwasher. It's been like living on eggshells. Like, what have I done? Then I'd ask the question again with the action. And then I'd be living inside this main character's head with now we're understanding like this is a pattern for them. We're understanding a lot more of this person without having to take a step back because you're still in the moment. But it's almost like what you would see in a nervous dynamic where how this woman is perceiving this interaction. So that's kinda how I manage that show and tell piece.
That's really interesting. Yeah, and I've seen it in your writing. You're very intentional when you do your tells. They're for like the most impact, like emotional impact. I really like it.
Thanks.
Yeah, and for literary writing, I think that it's actually like a little bit more of a free for all. In general, there's a lot more relentless showing without explanation or telling that's happening. But I think that often what I see in literary writing is like when the authors do tell, they are being blunt for maximum impact for the reader, for tension, for character growth or dissolution.
Mhm.
The character is totally falling apart. They're going on a downward spiral and they really want you to know it. So I think that that's kind of how I would break it down from different levels of writing or
Using
different
that
audience
scene
levels.
for
Yeah.
using that scene, how would a literary person write that?
I mean, they would go in tons of different directions. Like, that's the thing. A literary person might write that scene from the point of view of the cockroach under the rug.
That is so
You know what
true.
I mean? Like,
Yeah.
they're going to, break it apart
Mhm.
and remold it to some sort of other vision other than the drama that is immediately happening in the room. Oftentimes in literary writing, it's much more thematically minded. Like if you have Dostoevsky writing it, for example, like and making it a scene from Crime and Punishment, he is going to be focusing mostly on his themes about, criminality and society and deviancy within that scene and like the moral conundrums that are happening for each of the characters and how they
Mhm.
might secretly be hypocrites to their own
Mhm.
values. So he might have internal thinking on the page, but it'll be something that is more just it's less handholdy. Like you might not even know that it's their thoughts until you're halfway through and then you're like, "Oh, this is their internal thoughts. He's mixing it with the prose." Like, that kind of thing happens a lot of the time. A lot of rules are broken
Mhm.
in literature.
One of the things I love about your writing is your subtlety. Like,
Thank you.
I I had, as you know, a very difficult time reading your work way back when, like a year and a half when we started.
It
And
was a long time ago.
not because it's purely a me thing. I'm so used to reading writing that tells me, there's no analysis, no, you're reading the book and it is what it is. You don't have to really think, you just glide through it. But with literary work, I really have to slow down, think about what I'm reading, and pick up on themes. It's almost like how it is in school when you're doing like a book report, like the drops of sand represent the people of all different races, it's
Yeah,
like
yeah, yeah,
that.
yeah,
And
yeah.
I've really grown to appreciate and love this style of writing. And because you do it so beautifully and the themes you bring up. Anyway, I could go on, but
Thank you,
it's
thank you.
very, very well done.
I mean, girl, try to read A Scanner Darkly. Just read the first few pages, and I want to hear your views on what it feels like to be thrown into this disgusting bug finding fest for the first few
I will.
pages.
Because how many times in the beginning when I was reading your work, I was like, it was so beautiful, but I don't know what's happening.
Yeah, it was really funny. I mean, I think that this is just a small aside um, for when you find to all the writers out there that are listening, finding the right readers for yourself. Any reader can teach you anything. Like I think that that's really important. Like every reader that you have gives you valuable feedback. No matter if they read different types of literature than you are writing, they will give you what you need to know for every audience that's out there.
Mhm, mhm.
Yeah,
Agree.
it'll give you perspective that you wouldn't have had otherwise.
I totally agree.
Yeah, it's always helpful.
So,
Okay.
should we move on to our main act?
Yes, let's move on to our main act. I'm looking at my show notes. Uh,
So, today we're going to be talking about how to write characters that don't fall flat. And this is very hard to do because there's so many techniques that you can use, but so many times you find characters that you don't remember or you feel like you've seen them before and they just don't hit home the way they should. So, let's talk about how to prevent that from happening.
I think that there's a difference. There's some people that are going to ask this question looking for basic craft advice where they're like, "Oh, okay, I want to be a good writer. I don't want to make amateurish mistakes." And I mean, obviously we could discuss that, but I was more interested in asking this question when it comes to like, okay, so you're writing a book, you're writing your characters, and you're writing them the way that you want to write them. And two things could happen. One, you could be falling into habits of audience pleasing, people pleasing, and flattening your characters. Or two, you could be writing a character where you're like, oh my God, I think that this character might annoy people. I think this character might offend people. And you flatten them in response to who you think that audience would be. So I really wanted to focus less on specific craft advice and like, okay, this is generally what you can do to avoid like give them a dark past. Sure, like you could do that. But what I really want to talk about is avoiding that peer pressure that a lot of us feel when we're writing. Like, how do you deal with that peer pressure? And then create a character that you want to create that is complex and dangerous and drives plot.
I'm gonna have to think about this. As you know, I tend to not think about those types of things. I just write who I want.
Well,
And
a beautiful way to start is I feel like you have faced that pressure yourself with your first book. You were told repeatedly that, your characters were not likable enough.
Mhm.
Do you feel like you kind of escaped that process relatively unscathed? How did you push back against the very real, not just peer pressure or social pressure, but professional pressure that was put on you to make your characters likable? Did you feel like you would have to flatten them in order to do that?
It's difficult because there are certain things that I changed that I agreed with where I was like, okay, yeah, I can see how that would be perceived and I would change it. In terms of pressure, I think I only felt it one time, and that was when I was getting a literary agent. I had a couple of offers, and one of them really, really hated. Like my main male character really seemed to trigger her.
Amazing.
She hated him.
Did she
And
give a specific reason why? I'm
yeah,
personally
what she
curious.
said he was whiny and like misogynistic and
Are
just
we not
not
allowed to have misogynists in books
well.
anymore?
And
Just
that
wondering.
she just didn't like him at all, and
Mhm.
she wanted him to be someone that people could fall in love with, and that's what I kinda wanted to write was a character that you love that you shouldn't. That's what like someone that you care about, but he's like this kind of dick, but you're like, "Dang it, why do I care about him?" That's what I wanted, and so she said that if she was to take me on as a client, I would have to basically rewrite the book to make him more likable, and luckily, I had my current agent who I have now, Christina, who has always seen the heart of my work, and she loves my characters, she loves how messed up they are. She really understands where I was going, and she didn't really have of course, we went through edits and stuff, like you always do, but she didn't wanna change the heart of the book, and so, of course, that's why I went with her. Had I not had her as an option, like, let's say I only had one offer of representation and this was it, I probably would have succumbed to that pressure because you're so desperate to get your work published and you finally have that opportunity, and I might have been like, "Well, whatever." I don't really get hurt feelings about if people want to change things of my book. I don't necessarily feel a strong attachment. I see this as like work that is going to be constantly changing and flowing, and by the end it's going to be a different product from when I started. So that form of attachment I didn't struggle with, but I did struggle that she wanted to change the heart of my story, but I probably would have done it if I didn't have Christina who plucked me
Mhm.
out of the pile.
Yeah. Did you ever struggle with, like, just or since, have you struggled, like, internally since that, uh, initial interaction where someone says, like, "I hate your main character." Have you struggled with that with creating other characters where you're like, "I don't want them to be too dislikable," and how have you retained, their heart, their complexity, and all the friction points?
That's also a difficult question. So it's my book was on sub for a year, and many of the responses were, "I loved the story, but I didn't like the characters." And until I finally sold it with Thomas and Mercer, and what I kind of walked away with is, you just gotta write what you write, and it will eventually find its home. So for book 2 with Thomas and Mercer, I will say it's a similar style of book. It's kind of like the sister book, but a totally different story and not in the same world or anything, but touching on similar themes. And I will say I thought to myself, "Oh, I better not make them so unlikable this time." And then I was like, "No, no, no. We are not going to start your writing career with you not trusting your own voice. You're going to write these characters how they should be written, these sisters, and the truth about people is that they're ugly." And I think that's why White Lotus has done so well, is that you see
Mm,
all the different facets of these people. You see the good, bad, and then the ugliness in them. And we want to see the ugly edges of people. We don't necessarily have to like them. That's part of building empathy. So I'm
mhm.
just gonna just you know what if it finds its home, great. If it doesn't, it doesn't. And Thomas and Mercer saw my book for what it is, and they saw the heart of it, and I don't have to change it. So that's
Mhm.
just what I'm going to keep on doing.
So basically, it's just you have to push through those internal voices when you're
Hmm.
writing
Hmm.
and make make the decision to have them be whiny for a time or have them be unfair or misogynistic or racist or whatever, like whatever you're trying to express, where it's just like this is their fault. This is a fault in their character.
Hmm.
You and they like and they're not the villain. I'm challenging you. Like I'm representing a human being, like White Lotus, for example, a human being who would go on vacation and not understand the repercussions of colonialism in Hawaii. Like they're completely oblivious to it and they're having trouble with marital relations with their wife. like
Hmm.
like there's a bunch of things happening with that character and it's okay to have them encounter real types of moral failings or real types of, you know, perceived moral failings in the world, like things for people to fight over. Like this is my personal uh hobby horse. Is a hobby horse?
I don't
I don't know if I'm using that term
I don't
wrong.
know either.
Um uh but like when I write, I am purposefully trying to create characters that would upset somebody on some level, upset them into thinking more, not into thinking less. I don't want people to shut down per se, but I'm willing to make my character defend bad things. I really do want to create that friction for people where they go, how can this person be this way and this way at the same time? So, like, let's here's an example of a trick to complexify your characters that I always see, and it kind of makes me cringe when I hear it like summed up in this way, but here you go. It's basically like have your character have opposing details about their personality.
Mhm.
One, the example that I've seen is like, okay, your character's a cold-hearted killer, but they also love animals. And it's
Yeah,
like,
that's
okay,
classic.
great, great. But, like, for me, like, I do think that that is a generally good place to start, but you have to spin it into something that is actually, A, working with your theme, working with whatever you're trying to say overall with your book, and B, is more interesting than that, like, because people have seen that a million times before, so you have to get a little bit more creative with how they might be internally contradictory to themselves. So, like, the main character of my book, she is fiercely, she's constant she's the kind of character just is like, "I'm not dumb. I'm not stupid." Like, she's very independent, she's very, like
Yes, she is.
she believes in herself to an extent where it should become clear to the reader. She says it so much that she's not dumb that maybe on the inside she feels a little dumb. And she's a little worried about that. And with her character, she's just like, I'm all about, empowerment and self empowerment. But there is a point in the book when she learns the word misogynist. She's never
Mhm,
heard that word before.
mhm.
She has no formal education. She just learns the word. She's told that it means someone who doesn't like women. And then she goes, oh, that's me. I guess I'm a misogynist because I hate women. I hate how weak they are. I hate how they act this way. It's a historical novel. So she's acting on only narrow experiences in her own life. And she's
Mhm.
thinking about specific people that she's encountered. So for her, it makes sense to say that. And I I like to create characters that are interacting in the world in such a way that makes you think about who they are, who they might become, and what does that say about yourself, your friends, and how we view women in general and internalized misogyny. We talked about that last episode. How does that express itself in
Right.
even most innocent and intentioned among us?
Yeah, I love that. It's creating flawed characters in a way that's not forced, in a way that makes sense in the world that they're living in. Because people are different. I like this one advice about like the three faces, like who your character is in like public, private, and then with like close people that they know. And that's kind of how we are. We have different masks. We have different ways that we act or say things. And we have the face that's presenting while at the same time thinking maybe completely different things than what's coming out of their mouth. And that's
Yes.
how we are as people too. So if you try
Yes.
and make them the most realistic, like think about how would I react now, how would like the extreme me react, or if the me if I was cruel, or the me if I was anxious, how would that person react? And I think that can be really helpful.
I agree. I think one thing that I would do to add to that piece of advice, because it's it's something that I've run into, the idea of your character has to be consistent or feel consistent in their actions throughout the book. With this three faces, it's forcing you into inconsistency. So my advice is to make them inconsistent first and then explain why they're inconsistent to yourself later. So if they are super nice in public and then super cruel in private, or vice versa, just do that first. Don't worry about being inconsistent because you're being inconsistent purposefully. Then think about why that works for their character, what's their past, what's their present, what is making them make these decisions internally, and then back to our how to show not tell. How are you then going to show the reader through dialogue, through details, through character actions, that all of this transition from external life to internal life makes complete sense for this specific individual that they are reading about right
Mhm. Yeah. And, like, what would be the exceptions? Like, if you have a very, very brave character, what situations would they not be brave? I think part of what made my male character come off as whiny or, like, this toxic masculinity, which he is that he would be his internal dialogue when it was his POV. He's very, like, "My wife's a bitch, and, she's
now.
gonna die, and blah, blah, blah." And then
Uh-huh.
and then cut to the scene where she's there, and he's like, "I'll do anything for you," like, so it can be very jarring to have that, but it made
Mhm.
sense for him, like, he's trying to be the tough guy, and
Mhm.
he
You
is in many
also
ways.
you also have a certain kind of comedic sense to your writing, though. There is a funny twist
Yeah.
to your prose and the way you structure stories. So, like, I feel like there are a lot of people that get caught up in, the dramatic narrative, and they're trying to write something drama-filled and serious. And if you're going into a slightly different feeling where it's like it's a little bit more of a romp, people are dying, but it's funny. Like,
Yes.
that is real. That's a real type of writing. People really do enjoy it. It's kind of like cozy death.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly.
I mean, there's so many cozy mystery stories where someone dies at the beginning and you're not bothered at all, and it's
Mhm.
funny. And I think that that's like it's a slightly different type of writing, but you can absolutely like you have your characters pop off the page, possibly with more comedic intention or irony involved, and
Yeah.
that's a way to make it make sense.
That's true, like, a lot of my writing is dark comedy, and so you're exactly right, that it does. Maybe if you're not catching on to that, it might be more, jarring for you where you're like, "Wow, this is this is interesting."
Yes. I mean, yeah, I'm one that loves dark comedy. I like it when White Lotus, for example, gets to its darker places.
Me too, I love it.
Yeah, I think it's a good old time.
Begonia was a dark comedy.
Yeah, I don't want to give away the end. I don't want to give away details, but yes, there were so many really dark yet funny moments to it, and I mean, it didn't pull any punches. It's a
Mm-mm,
wonderful movie,
mm-mm. I love that
fantastically
movie, I
written.
know. Mhm.
Yeah. Well, so the other side of this though is what are some of the social pressures that we might feel in writing a character? Like I know that I have certain voices living in my head going, "Oh, you don't want to go there or you don't want to say that." Like you don't want to hurt anybody
Mhm,
with your writing
mhm.
when I mean, I think that do you think it's morally okay to go like, actually, I have to just sit with the knowledge that someone's going to read this and be hurt by it. They are going to be confused and upset when they read this story.
I feel like it depends what you're writing. If you're offended by certain topics like what we talked about last week, I'm gonna write it, but I'm not gonna write maybe culturally insensitive things. Like, certain topics are off limits to me, that's what I've chosen to do. I probably would never make light of, well, I guess I kinda did in my first book. I guess it just has to d it just depends, just like everything. It depends on the story you're trying to tell, the message, the characters, the
I mean, it's like to make a complex character is not necessarily making light of something.
right.
It's making the attempt to express a complex view of that thing. And you might fail at it. You might not do it to someone's liking for good reason,
Mhm.
or you might succeed at it and you still won't do it to specific audiences liking. And I'm speaking broadly because this can apply to so many different things when you're being creative. You are going to offend somebody when you're being creative.
Yeah.
And I want to just push people to free themselves up when they're writing characters, but I also want to discuss like, okay, I think a lot of us think about the moral boundaries of writing complex characters.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just thinking of my first book. It explores a married couple who are secretly planning to kill each other while also having romantic themes. So it's very dark romance. It shows how certain relationships can turn you into your absolute worst and what that looks like, but it's kind of making fun of it. Um, so I could see how somebody could be offended by my book if they kind of miss the point.
Mhm, mhm,
And if that's a situation where you're just going to be offended because you missed the point, then that's just
mhm.
unavoidable, you know?
Yes.
But
Mhm,
I'm never intentionally doing like a message that is harmful. Do you know what I mean?
mhm. No, yeah, obviously. I think that a lot of people, when they're writing, are not intending to write any sort of harmful message. I
Mhm.
think that a lot of people get caught up in people's interpretations of what they attempted to say.
Mhm.
And sometimes those interpretations are valid because the person, you know, just failed to pull off the trick
Mhm.
of expressing themselves correctly.
Mhm.
Like we've all been in situations where you tried to I've been in this situation on this podcast where I'm trying to express myself clearly and I feel like I'm failing. And that's part of a writer's life. Like you are
Right.
trying to express this thought that is not meant to hurt anybody. It's meant to make people think maybe. It's maybe to cause a little bit of, positively intentioned disruption. But in general, it's not meant to be something that puts anybody down in any way that doesn't make them believe in themselves, for example.
Mhm.
That
Mhm.
that's like I'm not talking about someone who's writing specifically with hate in their heart to try to
Oh,
hurt
okay.
people.
Yeah.
I'm talking about aiming for complexity and how that can be a scary act in itself because you might end up hurting somebody. How do you navigate that? How do you write hard people? And I mean, maybe it's just give up on worrying about whether people are angry at you.
Yeah, it feels so, like, wrong to say, but I don't really care about that part of it, um, which I guess is easy to say right now because I don't have anyone angry at me. So, maybe it's easy like, "I'm not gonna care about that." But that's all you have is your voice. All you have is what you wanna say, and if people get mad about that and I've said this so many times in our podcast now, is that if I'm triggering a reaction in you, then you're probably the person I wanted this to read this book. And I'm glad that you're having an emotional reaction, and then I would like a discussion to start from that. So I always just kind of write that this is my work. I know my intention. I know why I'm writing this. And that's the only thing that can be truth because you can't control perception. You can't control people think about you, say about you, what they think of your book. You have no control over that. So I don't go there. I really don't.
Yeah. I have a final trick before we move on to throwing tomatoes then to
Okay.
say, a piece of advice for writing uh, complex characters who aren't flat. This
Mm-hmm.
is for anybody that struggles like me, has a lot of people living in their head going, maybe you shouldn't be offensive. Maybe you're being bad writing this person this way. Here's the trick. Write super early in the morning. Like, get up at, like, freaking 4:30 and have a writing session while it's still dark out. You look at the windows and it's all black and nobody's up. Maybe go to a cafe, or go to a special part of your house, but make sure where you feel alone. And I used to do this for major parts of my book. I would go to a coffee house. There was a 24-hour coffee house where I live, and I'd
Awesome.
go there. I'd wake up at 4:30, get there at 5. All of the windows would be black because it would basically still be night, and I felt like I was just writing in outer space. It forced this feeling of like no one else exists. You are just here with your characters. You're just writing your story, and it is what it is, and it can exist without any external noise or feedback. So push everybody out of your head, almost literally, right early in the morning. That's how you can kind of get that juice going with your characters, make them dangerous.
That's a fun advice. I like that.
Yeah. Well, I have an on-theme tomato to throw. I'm excited about it. Do you have a tomato this week?
I do. Mine is for Catcher in the Rye.
Ooh, nice.
And this review says 1 star. Confused. I have no idea why this book is considered a classic. I found it uninteresting in every way. It is what we in psychology used to call flight of ideas. It was tedious to read, but I forced myself, expecting to find something meaningful at some point. Holden is an unlikable, angry character, and even the writing is basic and monotonous. There is nothing about it that I found appealing.
Nice. And it's perfectly on point. His character is very unlikable.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I mean, and that's the point of the story.
Exactly.
Yes. He's
So I too had an on point and on
yes.
topic review.
Okay, so my review is for one of my favorite series, A Song of Ice and Fire by George R. R. Martin.
Okay.
Yes, it's one of my absolute favorite series. It's unfinished, George R. R. Martin, unfinished.
Get
Would
to
love
it.
you to write the next book. Get on it. But this review caught my eye. It really, really got me. So one of the reasons I love him is because he writes complex characters. He knows how to layer contradiction upon contradiction in order to make someone feel unbelievably just three-dimensional and representative of all of the complex things that he's talking about, life and power dynamics. So anyway, this is this person's reaction to those characters. The title, it's a 1 star review. The title of the, oh God, okay, it's a bunch of words that I think would be, okay. Well, one starts with R, one starts with P, and then violence and bad writing. I don't want to say it on
Well,
YouTube.
I know the what's
R
the
is it's 4 letters, starts
I
with
know
an
that
R.
one, but P I don't know.
And it's the PEDO.
Oh,
PHILIA.
got it.
Yeah. Anyway, so this review, it has like 5 different parts, so I'm just gonna read a couple. 1, the author does not write well, in my opinion. The book is filled with cliche phrases meant to take us back to the Middle Ages, like lady wife, lord father, mummers farce, call the banners, leathers, and silks, when referring to items of clothing, small clothes for underwear. The list goes on, dot, dot, dot. The sheer repetition of these phrases took away from my enjoyment of the book. Also, the book is far too long. And then another subpoint is the author, George R. R. Martin, hates women, does not understand sex as adults do, punishes the girly girls in the books by making them stupid, promotes the marital rape of a 13-year-old, who then falls in love with her husband rapist in a Stockholm Syndrome way, and allows children of 15 and 13 to lead armies while the 7 and 4-year-olds are told to grow up to full adulthood. To summarize, I find George R. R. Martin creepy, sexist, and immature. When I read that he frequents the fantasy conventions, when I read that he frequents the fantasy conventions, I was not surprised in the least. When I learned he's had a girlfriend, in parentheses, whom he only recently married, for 30 years, I was surprised and very disgusted with what I imagined their sex life to be. When I saw a picture of George R. R. Martin, a fat man with a bad haircut and a scraggly beard, wearing some sort of cap and in black satin for a black tie party, well, he's a nerd. No surprise there. The man is a sexist obsessed with, again, the P word, violence against women, and I believe he'd be happiest at a tacky medieval fair.
Holy moly.
But you know what? That was one of 80,000 reviews for A Song of Ice and Fire. So, yeah, I
What
don't
I
think he's worried about what this person thinks.
It's so interesting because she's going on and on and on about how he's a misogynist, and then she is like putting him down, like as a man. He's a nerd. He has a scraggly beard. Continues to go on to putting him down.
She or he. I don't know if it's a woman or a man. The name was not necessarily gender specific, but like, yeah, they were brutal, brutal.
Really mean. I love nerds. Nerds are the
Unnecessarily
best.
so. Yes, yes. I mean, like, I've been nerdy in my life. I mean, a lot of us have. I think that is just
Look,
completely
we write
unfair.
books, okay? We're
You
nerdy.
know. And I would say like this might also be the cost of writing interesting characters.
Yeah.
Like you will get people who are upset enough that they are going to accuse you of being the worst type of person on the planet. Like
Yeah.
it just is like the amount of sins that this person laid on him for writing, plots that are, not that dissimilar from a medieval world. That a lot of the things that he describes in his book are lifted straight from history.
Yeah. Yeah.
Not the dragons, but I'll say marrying a 9-year-old. Yes, that did happen.
Yes. Still
So
does.
anyway, yes, it still does in many parts of the world. Anyway, so
Not
yes.
that we condone it. We do not condone that at all.
Well, so now on to happier things. We have a reader question
Yes. Our question
from
is,
Tanya.
yep.
Yeah, go for it.
Okay. What books or resources should I read to improve my writing? Well, I think you should read fiction books, first of all. I think that's the best thing you can do is just read, read, read. Any kind, anytime, anywhere. You should there's tons of craft books out there. Save the Cat, just tons out there. Just look it up.
I
And
mean,
then
well, Save the Cat is on specifically on plotting. And if you want to have a more in-depth kind of analysis of plots, Joseph Campbell's Hero's Journey is a fantastic place to start
Mhm,
for learning what plot structure is and why it works in the specific ways it does.
mhm. Stephen King's On Writing is really good, and there's tons of like online classes you can take. Like the Writers Conservatory has some really good ones. What else do you have any online classes that you take?
I mean, I definitely took the master class, you're gonna laugh, from Dan Brown.
Oh, I took a master
Yeah.
class as well.
Yeah, I really liked Masterclass. I thought it was a really good resource early on when I was trying to just get my bearing on like what made a good plot, basic rules of writing, what were some ways that I could just a list of basic facts that I need to know, and then I could
Mhm.
start playing with them. And Dan Brown was a really great place to start. He did the Da Vinci Code, and he explained why he wanted to write the types of books that he does, and then he explained how he kind of crafts them. And it was really helpful to learn about commercial writing. It's really fun.
Mhm. I did one by Harlan Coben. He
Ooh,
does like a
okay.
bunch of thrillers, and that was really, really good as well. And he really gets into the nitty gritty. It's not just broad details. He really just gets into it, which I appreciate. Another thing is going to writers' conferences and making writer friends
Yes, agreed.
and doing
Those
writers'
are always
groups.
helpful. Hmm. Yeah, and writers' conferences, if you can get to one where it has agents and editors, they will give you fantastic advice from their point of view,
Hmm.
because what they are is a bridge between your creative space, your creative world, and a world of business and trying to actually sell your book. And they'll give you advice outside of yourself.
Writers' retreats are a really good one too, because then you're with other people and then it's just set time, lectures, and you're just writing for the whole however many days you signed up for it.
The one thing that I would advise is to, if you want to look at YouTube, I think that I would look at some of it. I think that a lot of it is great to start with,
Like
but
ours.
plan. Yeah, sure. I mean, including ours. Like there is a time for you to also shut it off. There's a time for you to just sit with yourself and not be so beholden to the do's and don'ts of the YouTube algorithm. which really is just trying to get you to watch the videos by making you scared of making a mistake. Watch those to start with, but then plan to let them go after a
Mhm,
time.
mhm. That's how
Yeah.
you'll find your own voice, and, yours will be different from somebody else's, and that's okay.
Yeah. I agree. I agree.
I have a question for you today. Is fandom good for books and writers?
Really interesting question. I
Mhm.
have a lot of thoughts on it, and I'm gonna have to share it next week.
Ah, you got me.
Well, so we're going to talk about that next week. And thank you for listening. Please like and subscribe.
You always
I'm
remember, yeah.
getting better at
You
it.
are, you're
Yes.
getting so good.
um, and we'll see you next week.
Bye. You just listened to Page Fright. Don't forget to like and subscribe and write to us at pagefrightcontact@gmail.com.